Welcome back, everybody. I have another wonderful opportunity to speak to a great Canadian actor. Canadian actors are always welcome on my program. They're at least a third, and I think we're starting to go closer to half of all of the people that I've interviewed. And your episode 113 are from Canada. I love Canada, love Toronto, love Vancouver, love talking to you guys. And you were on Travelers for an episode, and you would be.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. Blink and you'll miss me, but
Listen, you and another wonderful actor from Vancouver was also on Travelers. His name is Dan Payne, and I recognize Dan without seeing his face. I am that
wow.
good. I saw him opening the door of the car. I'm like, wait a second, that's Dan. And then finally we get his face for 2 seconds. I'm like, I text him immediately saying, Dan, I just saw you. So
Fan club.
please welcome to the program, and we'll continue this fun discussion. But who is joining me today is Trevor Roberts. Welcome, Trevor.
Hello, thank you. Very happy to be here.
No, it's my pleasure. It's one of those things, right? Being an actor, you're in something, and people have seen you, and then they're like, "Wait a second, you were in that?" No, yes, I remember. It's one of those have to dig through the memory banks of oh yeah, you were that dude. Okay, so it's an interesting thing that we all kind of, well, not me, but all the people that I talk to have to go through.
Yeah, it's been kind of interesting in the last 6 months or so. Well, I guess particularly, yeah, the last 6 months, because people are I'm getting messages from friends saying, "Oh yeah, I was showing my friends that you were in this show," and then they started saying things like, "Oh, I remember him from blah blah blah," and I remember, and I was like, "Really? You don't, because you don't always have the best concept of your own body of work."
It's true. I am at a point where nobody has ever stopped me and said, "Hey, I've seen you in this." So I look forward to that moment when that ever maybe happens. But
Careful what you wish for. Careful what you wish for.
well, we'll see how this show goes. Perhaps it'll get to a point where I'll start getting recognized for it. Some people did call me a clown for it, so I know that part has started, which is welcome, because then that means that more people are watching. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'll let you know how it feels when I get there. Let's talk about the show that people are seeing a lot of you in right now, which is on Hulu. It's a Marvel show, and it's called Hellstrom. And you get to play a really interesting character, Father Joshua, somebody who is a little more than he appears. Right? Okay. How many episodes have come out?
They all dropped at once,
Oh,
so
okay.
I don't know if you want to go spoiler filled or spoiler free.
Well, I want to go spoiler filled.
Okay.
Since, we're
Bring
just,
it.
we're going to give a warning to everybody. All right. So if you have not seen it, you definitely should see it. Please click on the link below the video to see it. But for now, if you don't want to hear spoilers, please fast forward, and we'll let you know when it's okay to start. So I always love when I would get breakdowns, because I'm a goofy, silly, nerdy kind of guy. And then I always get these breakdowns of, he's a friendly neighbor, but there's something about him. I'm like, okay, why do people keep seeing me as the psycho killer? Is there anything that I need to worry about? So I love the breakdown when I saw it, that he plays Father Joshua, a priest with more than he seems. I'm like, okay, I got it. I remember that breakdown. So did they tell you anything about the role when you were auditioning for it? Did they give you nothing? Okay.
No, not at all. It's such a funny story because there's so much secrecy surrounding everything with Marvel.
Yeah.
That I went out for a role that was in the first 2 episodes, and it was just the breakdown comes in for second Hulu project. I guess there was one already shooting in Vancouver, and then they give you this scene that there's enough information in there to think, okay, this guy's possessed by a demon, got it. So so you just kind of do that scene. I didn't get that role, but then like 5 weeks later, they were casting for this other one. And again, it was dummy sides. It wasn't the actual scenes from the show, like, at all. It was more like they knew the qualities of the characters that they wanted to put on screen, like the certain, I think they knew certain character beats that they wanted to play with over the arc of this character. So they kind of crammed them all into this one scene where the scene was written as, breakdown is for John Oberman, 60s. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not me, but they must want me to give my own spin on this. And it was this guy giving a young, pretty woman a job interview for a big corporation before he gets very, I just keep saying Harvey Weinstein-y, because it gets aggressive and it gets a little bit violent, and it told me what show I was auditioning for. And I just I don't know, I got that side, and I just had a lot of fun with it. Did it like 2 or 3 times and just kind of sent it off, and it was just a real quick turnaround before they were saying, yeah, you're Father Crow.
Wow. So the Harvey, let's put this into perspective, that the Harvey Weinstein 60s guy turns out to be a priest. I just think that's special.
Yeah. I mean, it gives you a real good ew kind of feeling. So, and then when they put me on, when they basically said, you're going to network for approval for the role, and by the way, he's not like a businessman. You'll be playing a Catholic priest who's possessed by a demon. And I was like, okay. Yeah, where do you go with that? It's like, and until you actually start to read the pages, you have no idea what you're actually going to be doing. So yeah, it was an interesting journey.
No kidding. And did they send you, like, once you got it and you started shooting episodes? I think you're in 6 episodes, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So once you, I have not watched it. Hamza and I talked about it yesterday. I am a huge Marvel fan, but horror is not my genre. So this is a fun show to talk about. It would be great if I were in it as an actor, but as a person who doesn't want to get freaked out, this is not my cup of tea.
Give it a try.
I might. After the conversation with Hamza and now talking to you, I think I'm getting myself to the point where I need to start watching it.
Yeah.
But what Hamza was saying is that Hamza Faoud, he was saying that they would send him sides, and it was basically just his part and really nothing else. So when you started shooting it, was it similar type of secrecy where they didn't really tell you much? It's just, well, here's your stuff.
Yes and no. They would send me just my bits of the script, which varied. So it didn't give me the full concept of what we were really filming, and nor how I specifically played into the overall story. But in the beginning, it was just such an interesting idea for me to wrap my head around. Okay, well, I'm a priest, and I'm going to be possessed by a demon, and this demon's kind of pervy. Like, he really likes to stir the poop. And then that became really fun to kind of sit in and figure out. And then with all the demon stuff, I remember going and speaking to one of the story editors on the show, Sheila. She had written the first episode that I was in, and I said, "So what do they move like? What do they sound like? When they're aggressive, when they're attacking?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, that's on you." She's like, "Just have fun with it. Just bring it." And I was like, "Okay, freedom."
That's good. Yeah, I would welcome that, absolutely. As actors, right? You especially with something like this, of really, what kind of research can you do about being possessed? Aside from watching movies and possibly hearing kind of tales of people who were or think they were possessed.
Sorry, I want to just jump in there, because that's the thing is, I remember speaking to the showrunner, Paul, and he didn't want things really, we didn't want to be emulating other forms of possession. We wanted them to be this show to be very specific. And I think, once you watch the show, when you watch the show,
Okay.
what's really interesting is to see how, like, some of the very talented actors on the show will shift back and forth in the same scene, in the same line, in the same beat, from their human personality to the demon. And that in and of itself is so frightening, and it's really wonderfully done in the show.
Yeah, I want to now. I want to watch it. I know I'm going to get freaked out, which I'm not going to enjoy, but I want to watch it
Let's
from
do.
a perspective because that is interesting to me of seeing
Hmm.
that shift. Because as you were talking, I was imagining of how I would be playing it, and I think I know how I would go about it. So it's interesting to see how you did and what the other other actors on the show did as well. So it's
Hmm.
fine. I'm convinced. I'll start watching.
All right.
So I just to make sure that I have your shoulder to cry on as I get freaked out, I have somebody to talk to about this, right?
Yeah, just don't text me late at night.
You think I'm gonna be watching this before I go to sleep? Are you kidding me? No,
Probably a good idea not to.
this will be a morning thing, so I can have a whole day to make sure that
Just to cleanse.
yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of cleanse and kind of getting more into the acting part of doing these types of characters and going really dark with something, whether you're having fun with it or not, but you're going into the demon, kind of energy, where you're going into somebody who's not a nice guy. Um, how does that feel? How do you get out of it? Do you stay kind of in character because you don't want to lose that energy? And then when you're ready to kind of leave that, how easy is it to leave behind? Because I can imagine that this is not something that would be a fun energy to carry with you.
Yeah, that's a lot, because you kind of had to take everything. I had to take everything on a case by case and a scene by scene basis.
Yeah.
Um, in the beginning, I was really only Father Crow for seconds behind a confessional screen wall before he became possessed. So it became about not thinking of the character as a demon to begin with.
Yeah.
It was just like, I felt like that would just make me start like acting like a demon, like, the demons that I'd seen in films. And instead, I remember the showrunner Paul had described, the demon who possesses Father Crow. His name is Rom, and said that Rom is a rabble rouser, and those people, they're shit disturbers. They liked, and demons, especially in this universe, they love to. It's almost like creating fear in humans is what gives them a high, and it makes them strong.
Yeah.
So what you want as that demon is kind of built in. And then what got really interesting as the season went along was when the demons would interact. It was very often like myself and Elizabeth Marvel, who plays Mother, and Dave Meunier, who plays Magoth, and and noticing that there's a hierarchy and almost a family structure in these demons. So then it was just interesting to figure out, well, where does my demon fit in that family structure? And everybody in a family structure kind of has a personality based on where they sit. So everything just kind of fell into place, and it became very fun to play with.
That sounds like fun. By the way, I love that, with the last name like Marvel, you get to be in a Marvel show. I think that there is something to it.
I know, serendipity, right?
Absolutely. I'm sure as the casting directors were looking through, it's like, yes, that's it.
Well, she's like just one of the best actresses that has ever graced the screen. So she doesn't need that last name to be in a Marvel show for sure. That's amazing.
And again, the only thing that I have seen is the trailer, and you see her in a trailer, and already I saw, oh yeah, that's a really, really strong actress. So I just based on that little alone, I agree with you.
Yeah, like they would very often invite me to the table reads for the show, And I think the very first one that I went to, when Beth opened her mouth as mother, I was just like, what is coming out of that woman's mouth?
Uh-oh.
Just the sound she is able to create. She's incredible. She's a force.
Wow. What again? Being around these actors, and you've been around some incredible actors that you had a chance to work with on this show and others that we're going to touch upon. What are some of the things that you, as an actor, are able to take away and integrate into your future performances?
Well, I like how, Beth was talking about how she always likes to work on something, in every day on set or every day in a show. And that can be today I'm just gonna keep my idea of listening, in the back of my head. Today I'm going to think about my physicality or my intention. Always, like, almost giving herself an underlying task so that she's always working within her work. And that's just such an amazing takeaway.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm gonna write that down because that's something else I'm gonna put into my acting acting bag, if you will.
Hmm.
So add a task for a day. Um, Thank you. That's very cool. I will definitely utilize that. And then jumping back, I think I kind of want to dive a little bit more into the previous question of you found a way kind of with the demon and the family structure to figure that out. But did you have any issues, any problems of kind of putting that away and going back to, okay, I'm Trevor. This is me. That's the coat I wear when when I'm acting.
No, not really, because I mean it's there's an intensely short amount of time that you have between the days when you get your script and you do a quick table read, you get your script, and sometimes you'll be getting you'll have a heavy episode, and you'll be filming that towards the end of the shooting schedule, so you've got a few more days to prepare. But very often, I found myself having my bigger shooting days early on, so it's a real quick turnaround. So you just kind of have to throw yourself into the work. um, just do all your prep, do all your emotional work, come to set. Sometimes sets can be a little bit, the days can be long, and they can be pressure filled, and they're making cuts, and and I remember one day when there was a good amount of dialogue and whatnot, and a good amount of action that had to happen all at the same time, and the director just had to make cuts because we were having a long day. And you just kind of have to breathe through it, let the crew do their amazing job, and just be ready for when they call you to set. So by the time it comes to taking off that priest garb, I mean, it literally is like when you're undressing in your trailer, you're kind of the collar comes off, the jacket comes off, and there's something that does kind of cathartically happen as you let go of that work that you did that day. Because barring something catastrophic happening to the film and having to do a reshoot, you never get a chance to visit that moment with that character again. So you hope that you just did it justice, and you just kind of let it go. And I found myself taking in some nice deep breaths as I walked to the car, and drove home from set. And yeah, and then you just get ready for the next day, because that's where you kind of have to be. You just have to, okay, that was today, boom, done. What's tomorrow?
Yeah, that type of segmentation is something that's very valuable. I remember reading that you've played, multiple characters in a show, not this show, but
Mm,
you played multiple characters in the show, including like three characters in the same scene.
yeah.
So the segmentation is something that you really really had to get good at.
Hmm.
How did you find that process of snapping in and out of different characters?
uh Having to rely on a really good like foundational training.
Mm.
I had many years where I was working at the Vancouver Youth Theatre here in Vancouver, with a really amazing director, Carol Tarlington. And it, she just drilled in us, from a very young age when I started working with her, that just kind of the precision and professionalism and the preparedness that it takes to pull off a seamless performance. you know, things will always go wrong, especially on stage. But yeah, it was just, you know, it was just a lot of training and a lot of practice. I'm a perfectionist, and when I have certain moments in shows where they are particularly difficult, and like the one you're referring to, where I'm playing three characters in one scene off of somebody else who's also playing two or three characters, we would make that 2 pages of the script our last little bit of warm up and connecting with each other before doing the show. Every show. You know, it creates a fun little tradition. It's like, you know, getting ready, you know, to dunk the ball. Yeah, it was great.
Very cool. So what's you know, diving deep into talking shop, because on the love of acting, that's partially what we want to do, is talk shop. What is your approach? What do you find that, you know, out of the things that were drilled into you early on and things that you picked up later during your work? What are some of the things that work really well for you in order to get into character and deliver that seamless work with your reference?
For me, I feel like when I first get a script for an audition, um, I don't know if it's, you know, just blind arrogance thinking that I can do every single role, but um, if it kind of falls in my wheelhouse, I very quickly have an idea of how I could wear this character, or how this character could kind of speak through me. And, you know, because you kind of have to long abandon, you know, as you get more experienced as an actor, you stop asking that question of what are they looking for? What do they want? Because you'll drive yourself crazy, for one, and that will just kind of take you away from whatever uniqueness you can bring to the work. So I just kind of focus on that, just being, letting my energy kind of, you know, my unique energy be played for this character and through these words. And usually when stuff is written really well, I give it a good like read or two, and then just like the words are there. And then from there, I've always really enjoyed the process of creating the, and then like creating the character's wardrobe. It's the tiniest little choices. It's the tiniest little choices. Does that character have the top button of the shirt buttoned up, you know, underneath the tie? Because it, you know, it does create something different. You know, um, you know, I have like garb, because I often get, you know, a lot of roles that are white trash guy, you know, rapist-y types, you know, so I have clothes that, you know, reflect that. And it's like I'm still playing as an adult the same way I was when I was a kid. You know, for certain types of characters, you know, like I will go and I will do a little bit of makeup sometimes. And then when you look at yourself in makeup, well, me, when I look at myself in makeup, in wardrobe, and then I see myself different than, you know, how Trevor walks around every day, it gives you a certain freedom to buy into whatever fantasy you're trying to create for the audience. And yeah, that's that whole combination of, you know, of theater and film and costumes and lights and all the magic that goes into it. And yeah, I want it all as an actor. And you know, and then further to that, I guess if you're talking about process, for me, it's just always about letting the words kind of just come through you as genuinely and truthfully as possible. Yeah.
Very cool. I definitely resonate with that. Thank you for sharing. The something else that I find interesting is that, at least based on my, you know, kind of look throughout your career, I've seen you in comedy and I've seen you in dramatic parts. Is there a, you know, a preference, or you as an actor you want it all?
I want it all. I want it all. No, I mean, there's not a ton of comedy, unfortunately, that's shot in Vancouver, and that's where I'm based. I would really love to work some comedic chops a little bit more, but I'll take what I can get. Dramatic stuff is fun too, because, you know, in the dramatic stuff, I find that, you know, I'm the one tied to a chair getting beaten and bloodied. I'm the one, you know, rabid and again probably tied to some hospital equipment. You know, I'm some character named asshole. Like, it's just, you know, you just get to do so many fun things as an actor, and then as they start to kind of build up, a body of work and a career over time, there's a lot of things to chuckle at.
This is specifically the reason why I'm laughing at the asshole remark is I wrote this down. This is going to be one of my questions about imposters. You having the role actually is titled asshole.
I love it.
That's the part. It's like travelers playing a dad, right? Imposters, asshole.
Yeah, imposter. That's like I literally took a picture of the call sheet that day because asshole Trevor Roberts. I mean,
it's just
perfect.
It's
perfect.
Precious. And I wanted to go back to kind of how things started a little bit because you were in a scene with Leo, and who else was in that scene?
Robert De Niro.
Yes, yeah, Leo and Robert. That's not a bad start.
Yeah. You won't see me in that film. I was cut out of that film, but it was having you're booking a job on your first audition for a film and getting to be in a scene with Leo and Robert De Niro when you're 16. That was a really amazing thing. A really, really weird way to start a career. And how hilarious that it got cut. I learned everything I needed to learn in that first year. Don't get too tied to it.
Yeah. I was talking to Sean Murray, who was also in that movie. He played.
Oh yeah.
So it's like a lot of really good actors when they were younger were in that film that went on to have really, really good careers. So and then you played on my goodness. Yes, on Scary Movie, you were Dookie. I remember watching Scary Movie. I love the Wayans brothers. So, what was that experience like for you?
Oh, it's been a long time, but it was incredible. It was a very charmed kind of time in my life and a charmed experience. Because when you're young, I think when I was young as an actor, it was it was definitely really cool what was happening. I was a fan of In Living Color and a huge fan of the Wayans family. And I remember justifiably freaking out a little bit, just about like, oh, I'm getting an audition to go, audition for Keenen Ivory Wayans tomorrow night. Like, that's really cool. I wasn't, losing my mind or anything. I went in and had fun. He wanted me to play a stoner and do some improv, and I was like, okay, let's have some fun.
Yeah.
And then one of those things when it's just like 2 days later, they're like, okay, you're booked, get on a ferry, you're going to Victoria to film. And then they just started calling us back for more and more days, and it was just a really fun experience. And then about 6 months later, they came back to do some reshoots, and they called me in, and that's when they actually shot the whole Was Up thing, because it was between the shooting time and the post-production time when that had kind of gotten big. So they wanted to slide in more, kind of current comedy.
Yep.
And the show was testing really well. And then it just it exploded and blew up. And then it was everywhere. And it was, it was a very fun time.
Yeah.
No complaints. And I still get the GIF sent to me dozens of times a year.
That's really funny.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I remember, again, I'm old enough to remember the commercials when they came out, and it definitely was a revelation. It was new and unique, and there was a time where really, really great commercials were coming out. I haven't seen too many really great commercials lately, but that may have been kind of the golden time.
Yeah.
And then again, I've seen you kind of peppered in a lot of my favorite shows. You were on Psych. You did an episode of Psych, which was still is the favorite comedy of all time. That's
really
for me. This is my, like, for you, and another reference that I found fascinating because I do that too. Not every time, but I do that too. Sing Broadway in the shower every single time you're in the shower. So I definitely resonate with that because musicals are my happy place. But Psych is is that thing where I watched it, and then my son, who is 11 right now, he is a is it a psychic or a psycho? What are we calling that family of people who are watching? The the people who love Psych. I got him hooked on Psych, so he and I watched the whole thing again, and now we're about to watch Psych 2. Lassie Come Home, which came out about a month and a half ago, but we still haven't watched it. So I'm waiting where I can sit him down and both of us can watch it. So Psych, yeah, I absolutely adore that show. I even got my wife hooked on it. That's how much I love it.
That's awesome.
What again with those guys? It's every show has a really different kind of energy and a feel to it. Psych has its own very specific rhythm. So I have to rewatch now the episode that you were in. But what was your recollection in terms of kind of being in that rhythm, being in that energy, and having to play off of it?
I'd seen the show, but what I was really getting a lot of information from was really how the actors were on set. Like James and Dule were they were always just kind of on and snappy, and there was a rhythm and a vibe to it, and that's kind of again one of those, I looked like a big comic book nerd. I was a lot heavier back then, glasses, spiky hair, probably dressed wearing something making me look like the comic book guy from The Simpsons going in for my audition, and basically it was like be a nerdy virgin, type. A comic book guy, who gets his mind read, for all those traits. And yeah, it was just, again, it was just one of those things where you get the scene and you're like, oh, I totally get why this is funny. And I get how those actors are going to make it funny. Mm-hmm. And then if you're kind of, I guess, in tune with, with the tone of the show like that, you just kind of you just drop yourself in to that energy and just play.
Yeah, it's one of those shows where like I don't care, what role, whatever, it doesn't matter. I just want to swim in those waters.
Mm-hmm.
That's Psych would be one of those shows for me. Dule Hill, fun fact, is on my #1 drama of all time and #1 comedy of all time and #3 drama of all time. So Dule is everywhere in my favorite shows.
Okay, so what's 1 and 3? I'm guessing West Wing is one of them.
That's one.
What's the other one?
Think of a big USA show that was shot.
Suits?
Huh?
Suits?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a great show. I love it.
Yeah, so it's, Dule is everywhere. Dule, if you're watching, we need to talk, buddy. And by the way, speaking of Dule Hill, I know you did tap. I know Dule, was probably tapping every day, on set. Did you see him tap when you were there?
Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I'm talking about as far as their energy. Like, he just, especially considering, in that particular scene, I remember they had converted this community center of some type to look like Comic-Con.
Yep. And
there was a stage set up, and James and Dule were up there with with George Takei, and and just between takes, Dule can't not tap dance. He just can't. Because his feet he's amazing. I'm like, I've done a little bit of tap. He's incredible.
Yeah, I'm glad that he talked people into finally giving him an arc so he can actually tap dance for real on the show. So
I'll have to look at that.
It was on Psych, and I'm trying to remember if he did any of that on Suits. I wouldn't be surprised.
No, I feel like I would remember that.
I need to go back. It's 100%. It was on Psych because that's when he was teaching Lassie how to tap, and then Lassie started tapping, which is perfect on its own.
Nice.
So that's a show that I saw you on. I mentioned that I saw you on Travelers, which I love Travelers. I'm really kind of upset that Travelers ended. I want more seasons of the show. And again, everything is shot in Vancouver. It's all Canadian, people in terms of the crew, the creators, and the actors, which is really rare. So I enjoyed that a lot. Again, very different energy. I'm trying to remember the episode that you were in, but can you remind me which one that was? If you
I I I cannot remember the name. I think the episode might have been called Jenny, and I
okay.
believe it was in season 2, maybe like episode 3, 4, 5. It was early in the season.
Mhm.
I can't remember. And that was one of those. I mean, it was quite literally just like a line. I had auditioned for a guest starring part in the next episode, um, and then it got written out, and then they found themselves they had written in this one line, and they're like, just see if Trevor wants to do this. And I
Listen.
remember my agent saying, "Oh, don't do it. They really like you. Do something bigger, do something better." And I was like, "Sure," but I was actually having a very impetuous moment as an actor. I said, "But this means I get to work with Eric McCormick like next week."
Yeah.
And he's just a big hero of mine. And what he's done with that show, and top to bottom Canadian talent uh, all over. It was something that I really wanted to be a part of.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Eric as well. I
Yeah.
talked to Magda Panowicz, who was on that show, who's in Vancouver as well. She's wonderful. It's a really cool show that
Hmm.
I truly enjoyed. So I keep asking all of the regulars to come on down. So any of the regulars, if you're watching, come on down. I want to talk more travelers with you. Another show, which is apparently I have many favorites, but a favorite of mine is Altered Carbon.
Oh
So
yeah.
you did a couple of episodes as Stack agent.
Yeah.
Uh, was it? And I didn't see on mobile. It doesn't show. Mobile IMDb Pro does not show whether seasons and episode numbers. Were you in season 1 or 2?
Season 1.
Okay. And what was that like? Because I think that show, I love it as a fan, but from a pure acting perspective, that show is so great.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was as well received as, maybe they had hoped. Um, I
Mm,
do know that some of the people that I know who had watched, they found it a little bit confusing, but as an actor
mm,
being a part of that, it was wonderful. I mean, it was another one of those very secretive hush hush type things. Um, I loved this one scene that I got to do with Joel Kinnaman. I mean, he's such an amazing actor, and I mean, he's so intense and so incredible in everything that he's in. And he was just lovely to work with. I remember the director of one of both of the episodes that I was in was just very just she would just let you do your thing, and she would trust you, and it really became about where she wanted to put the camera. um
mm.
but I remember, because in the scene, one of the main scenes that I was in, that I was working with Joel, I'm tied to a chair being beaten for information, and it's questionable whether or not I know, and whether or not I'm lying. um and Joel is intense. I mean, he's intense. I remember, there was always this really, he said, like, okay, it's like, so here's, we have to coordinate some punches, and he basically said, so how, like, if I grab you like this and I hold the gun like this, how is that? And you're always negotiating stuff and planning stuff out, with your fellow actors. And I said, yeah, we'll keep on checking in with each other after every take, but I just said, I just want this scene to look as badass as possible. So whatever we can do to make that happen, let's do that. So we, get to the end of, like, and we were doing it as a night shoot, and I think it was like 6 in the morning before we were done. And, but after every take, he's always looking at me, and he gives me that look like, you good? And I'm like, good. Let's go again. 6 in the morning. Let's go.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, being in a scene with him, he's a tall guy, he's a big guy, and
Imposing.
yeah, and even though in all of the interviews that I've seen him, he seems really chill, really kind of a nice, sweet man. When he's in character, that's not somebody that you really want to mess with.
Hmm.
And I want to ask, okay, let's see if we can peel back the curtain a little bit. When you're in those scenes where somebody is, from a viewer perspective, somebody's really hurting you. Obviously, you're not being, hurt, but is it all of the kind of the bruises and everything else, cuts or whatever happened? Is this all kind of post prod? How do they? Is there, are they doing inserts after the fact? How does it work from the technical perspective?
Well, for that one, there was a number of makeup tests beforehand to kind of, because I think one of my eyes was kind of half closed, and they wanted to, they have to test it out. They don't want to leave it till the day that you're shooting.
Yeah.
So you go in a couple times and you do the makeup tests and the hair tests, and they build your uniform or your costume. But then on the day, they just put it on, and then they don't really apply more blood because it wasn't like, you were seeing a wound occur in that scene, if I'm remembering correctly. But no, you're not getting hurt per se, but you kind of have to use whatever circumstances you have. So, while you're, there's a reason it's called acting. It's like, don't really hit me because I'm going to act it. But, what was very, I remember coming back from lunch, and you do the masters of scenes, and then you go around and you might do a little bit of coverage, and then you break for lunch, and then you come back and you do the rest of the coverage. And a scene that length took us all day to do, or all night I should say. And I remember just really being quite exhausted by the end, and that's great because my character should be completely exhausted and completely beaten down. So it was very easy to kind of use that exhaustion and allow it to also become despair and a reason to want to be anywhere but that situation.
So use it, absolutely. We keep on hearing that, in auditions, right? If you're nervous, great, use it. Use it. Make sure that that's a part of the character. Speaking of auditions, anything that I know right now everything is pretty much self-tape, but any advice on auditioning, things that you found that work really well for you?
Wow, that's an interview in and of itself.
Yeah.
It all depends on how somebody individually approaches the work. But the biggest thing that I've kind of been putting into my auditions lately that I'm feeling so great about is think of them less as an audition for this role.
Yeah.
And think about it as building the trust and a really strong relationship with the casting director, number one. And for the work itself, and the way you do that, the way I try to do that is I just try to turn off that little voice in my head that says, no, don't do it that way. And I just try to, in equal parts, trust my instincts, and give them, my uniqueness, my unique take on this scene. But while I'm also simultaneously dialed into what I believe to be the tone of this show. And, so those are some, I guess, philosophical ways I approach it. And then when it comes to actually right now in the self-tape world, just never forget that I don't like audition scenes where you just see these people just deadlocked.
Right.
And they don't break eye contact. And it's always like this. And it gets a little creepy after a while. I think that it's important to show your character in a full world, in the real circumstances that are happening, so that when people are looking at it, I don't want to use the word performance, but you're showing them like, this is like, I'm creating it all and I'm using it all in my head, and this is where I am, and let me show you where I am fully. Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's a great reminder. Excuse me. It's a great reminder because we never want the casting director to lose our eyes, and we never want to do that. Yeah, right. Come on. It's about reality. It's about, do you feel grounded as that character, or you don't? It's not about the eyes and not being lost specifically.
I mean, there is a certain amount of, technical know-how. It is about the eyes, but a lot of really strong moments can come out of breaking eye contact and then regaining it with your subject. So, you have to be truthful, but also know that, you are playing with the camera.
Right. So as long as you don't turn your back to the camera, I think we're okay. Although, that could be an interesting choice, I guess. Um, Now, going back to kind of the singing in the shower, because I have to ask if there's a favorite, tune that always comes up, or it's a, kind of a number of them that that you play with.
Oh, well, I mean, there's a my YouTube history, tells a long story.
Mm,
But I was always, a lot of that training that I did at Vancouver Youth Theater, it was musical based,
mm,
and I was just always, I've always been a huge fan of the musical genre, because of it is just a very certain kind of magic that quite literally happens before your eyes on stage.
yeah.
That um, just it can't be compared elsewhere. Currently, I'm obsessed with Hamilton. So I got a Disney Plus about 6 months ago, and I was just like, why have I not been listening to this sooner? I'm really obsessed with Hamilton. Um, and I mean, you just kind of name the old musicals. Like I like Little Shop of Horrors. I love Les Mis. I love Miss Saigon. I love Tommy. I mean Rent. Next to Normal, Legally Blonde, whatever. I mean, you bring it. I am all over the map.
Yeah. Producers is, I think, my number one.
Yes, good one.
And then recently I saw one that, is a fairly new musical that I've never heard about before. And I thought, oh my God, why this is that same thing of why have I never seen this before? This is perfect. And I'm trying to remember the name of it right now.
Oh,
Uh,
you tease.
Something Rotten. Something Rotten is the name.
Okay.
So Something Rotten is just it's meta. It's just beautiful. Like if I was to write a musical, it would be Something Rotten. That's kind of my sense of humor. That's my meta calls.
Mhm.
That's precisely what I would do. So those are the ones for me. But in terms of uh, Hamilton, thank you. In terms of
Mhm.
Hamilton, for the past since we all saw it, my wife and my daughter, finally got tickets when they were in Chicago, when Hamilton was in Chicago, and they got to see it live. I
Wow.
never got to see it because we could not get tickets. So I never got to see it. Neither did my son. So as soon as it came out on Disney Plus, we were right there. Since that
Hmm.
time, I'm not sure how many times we've watched this. We lost count. It's usually one of the four of us has it on our Spotify or Pandora playing. So
Hmm.
Hamilton is in the house.
Yeah, it's literally like I almost call it like a laundry folding show now. Like, when I'm cooking, when I'm folding laundry, when I'm just organizing, tidying, whatever, or doing some crafting around the house, I'll put on Hamilton in the background.
Very similar. And now it's become kind of the part of the vernacular. I would say something is like, okay, that's nice. And they're like, it must be nice. It must be nice. It's always now it's just weaved
Oh, it's hilarious.
into our daily existence. Last thing I wanted to ask you is if you had a chance to go back and talk to young Trevor, who's just starting out in acting, and give one piece of acting advice, what would that be?
Mm. One piece of acting advice. I would say stop trying to fit into other people's boxes.
Hmm.
Just smash it, be your own box. Yeah, just that. Um, because you spend I think as young actors and young people, you spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to be right,
Yeah.
be correct for other people. and then it's only kind of in as you mature often into your 30s and 40s that you realize that that's just such wasted energy, and that you're cool enough and unique enough on your own.
Yeah. I love it. And you just created the name of this episode, which is Be Your Own Box. So thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Robert. It's a joy. I will check out the show. I will be I'll be texting you in the morning and seeing how that goes. So thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Al. It's been nice.
Thank you. It must be nice. See?
Didn't even see it coming.
It's I can't help it anymore. Thank you everybody for joining us. I appreciate it. We know how much you love Hamilton, and hopefully you like this show at least a little bit. So we appreciate it. Thank you.